Yes, everybody, welcome back to Talking Walls. We're here for a brand new update video. Hope you guys are keeping well. It feels like a little while since I've made one of these videos, to be fair, but we are about, well, a quarter of the way through the season, really, and there has been some positive news for Wolves and Wolves fans after a positive few weeks for the football club as well. So we'll get into that. Wolves 5 matches unbeaten now. Hopefully can extend that to 6 against Sheffield United, which I'll talk about at some points during this video as well. Before we kick off though, guys, we're taking part in the Wolves Foundation Molyneux Sleep Out in a couple of weeks' time. So if you guys would like to contribute to our fundraising page, obviously it would mean a hell of a lot. Whether it's a couple of quid, a five or a 10 or whatever you can stretch to, it would mean a lot, and I'll leave a link to that in the top of the description down below. But we had a really interesting article today from John Percy over at the Telegraph to talk about Wolves' current financial situation and a couple of things going into the January transfer window as well. But it's pretty good news in regards to the financial side of things for Wolves. Of course, we went all throughout the summer struggling, knowing that we had to sell players. It was a really slow transfer window. I think in the end, Wolves sort of made up for it with some of the late signings, and obviously things are and it was such a disjointed pre-season and summer due to the situation with Julian Lopetegui. But Wolves now, it sounds like, are not going to be in trouble with the Premier League. I think that was Fosun's main concern. I think we had a couple of statements and articles from Matt Hobbs, and of course there was one from Jeff Shee as well, where Wolves almost knew that if they weren't careful, they could have some serious implications from the Premier League. And that's now what we are seeing with Everton. There's strong rumours that they could even have a point deduction, which obviously would be disastrous for them. But Wolves had, sold almost £140 million worth of players last summer. Obviously, the big ones that left were Ruben Neves, Nathan Collins, Mateus Nunes as well. And really, Wolves had to take that action to almost settle down the profit and sustainability rules that are currently in place for the Premier League. So it obviously used to be called financial fair play. It's now changed to profit and sustainability. And that's sort of what John Percy's put in his article today, that, Wolves had to be careful. They've sort of done what they need to do, and now the club are pretty confident and comfortable that the Premier League won't take any further action on them like they have, or what they are looking to do with Everton. There were a couple of other whispers and other journalists mentioning possibly that Wolves are under, they're still in a difficult position, which isn't so much the case. But of course, Wolves still will have to be careful in regards to what they spend. The whole Jorge Mendes thing is probably not a closed chapter, but Wolves aren't going to be looking into that one as much, because I think we've been stung by that far too many times. But obviously some of our best players are still guessed a few clients, so we do have to still give him that little bit of respect. But I think in terms of incomings, Wolves want to, widen their scope of talent and players, and that's exactly what they've done under Matt Hobbs so far, and so far so good, really. Of course, the sale of Nunes towards the end of the window really helped us, and that really helped give Wolves that budget to bring in the players that we did at the end of the window, like your Tommy Dawes, your Bellegarde, your Enzo Gonzalez's, your Santi Buenos. Of course, a few of those yet to really make a big impact on the team. But the good news for Wolves fans is that there will be prioritising certain positions ahead of the January transfer window. One of those is going to be a number 9. Of course, at the moment, Mateus Cunha is playing there. We've seen Fabio Silva start the season there. Not really gone to plan for him, unfortunately. Sasha Kalajdzic has come off the bench and got a couple of winning goals for Wolves, but still, for whatever reason, hasn't started the games. But yeah, Gary O'Neill has reportedly prioritised the addition of a number 9 forward, and now Wolves owners Fosun are weighing up how much money can be made available. Gary O'Neill is targeting a striker, so Mateus Cunha can play a free role across the front three. That is quite interesting for me as well, because we had almost this narrative at times been pushed to us that Wolves have signed Cunha as a number 9. And I think he's a great forward. I really, really like Cunha as a player. I think he probably does need to add more assists and goals to his game, but most completed dribbles in the Premier League so far out of any player. I felt he grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck at times against Newcastle as well. Won us some, fouls and free kicks in promising areas. And now with the injury of Neto, I've really wanted to see Cunha out wide a little bit more, almost a free role where he can drift inside. We saw Hwang sort of drift in, quite central at times, despite starting on the wing Does this mean if Jean-Ric Bellegarde isn't fit ahead of Sheffield United's game, Cunha could start out in a wider position, and we do see someone like Sasha Kalajic, or maybe a surprise start for Fabio Silva on Saturday as well? I'd be interested to see, but we could almost now, this injury for Neto could open up a different direction for Gary O'Neill to play with. We spoke about it on our podcast, which was released earlier this morning. We could even see Hwang and Cunha start central and maybe bring someone like Tommy Doyle in and really rely on the wing backs then for the width. But who knows? But a new number 9 is obviously going to be really interesting. There's no brand new names mentioned as of yet in terms of who Wolves will be looking at. Of course, Che Adams was one that Wolves seriously looked at towards the end of the transfer window. It was talks that maybe Wolves could try and get him on loan, but he wasn't under consideration. There's talks that he could possibly be revisited as a target. Another one of the players was Salernitana's striker Boulaye Dia. The Senegalese forward was, again, subject to an approach from Wolves, an approach that the Italian club did not enjoy. And we saw just days after the transfer window had closed, their president going off on one about Wolves and how disrespectful they were. It sounds like Wolves have now dropped their interest in him. Extremely talented player, but I'd assume one of the reasons for this is that Salernitana are going to be very, very difficult to negotiate with. So at the moment, Boulaye Dia, or Dyer, however you want to say it, is not going to be a player that Wolves are going to look to pursue this January. Of course, there is no further plans, according to John Percy, for Wolves to let go of first-team players. It's been mentioned and reported over the last couple of weeks that Pedro Neto has had talks with the likes of Matt Hobbs, not wanting to force a move away from the club. Of course, if a serious offer comes forward from another club and it's the right value, Wolves are never going to say no straight away. You know, every player in football has got a price, but Wolves aren't going to want to be ripped off. And I think, again, we've seen that over the last summer in regards, maybe bar Nathan Collins, but I think in regards to the fees that players that Wolves have got for players, they're really reasonable fees, and I don't think we're going to see silly deals like we saw under the Scott Sellers regime, where Adama Traore went out to Barcelona with no guarantee that Wolves were going to get any money. So I think Wolves, if there are going to be approaches, they're going to have to be serious approaches to let Pedro Neto go around in the January transfer window. Of course, Jose Sarr has signed a new contract fairly recently. It's said now as well that Hugo Bueno, talks have started with him over a new contract. Quite interesting, this one, because Ryan Aït-Nouri has really kicked on with his form. So the fact that Hugo Bueno is now possibly looking at a new contract is an interesting one. Maybe he could leave on loan to get some more first team minutes in January, and then Wolves have obviously secured themselves a couple more years on a new deal. I don't know, but I think that would, if Bueno did look to move, I think that would mean, another fullback would have to come in anyway as well. So it sounds like, Wolves have been impressed with Gary O'Neill, with how he's got on so far. I think over the last few weeks, he's certainly silenced a few critics. But it's games like the game against Sheffield United coming up on Saturday where we really need to get the 3 points. But yeah, cracking article today from John Percy, just to put the minds at rest of a few Wolves fans, and things slowly but surely, things aren't perfect yet, but things are going and heading in the right direction for Wolves. So a very decent time at the moment at the club, and hopefully we can build on the good form so far with 3 points on Saturday. Of course, I'll give my thoughts in the match preview in the next couple of days or so. As always, hit that like button, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Do let me know who you think Wolves should be targeting and what positions we should be targeting in January. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll catch you all very, very soon.